doesn't use a spring bar. Anywho, let's get going. Let's turn the music down and do it. Do the thing. That's maybe too low, or it's just a quiet song. All right. Ooh, I feel a sneeze coming. Uh-oh. I'll try not to explode into the mic. So yeah, got the gaskets, got everything I need. Everything should go off with a hitch, without a hitch here. Should be nice and smooth. Welcome everybody. Hey Reed, work for a few more hours, catch a stream later. Did the stream fail or something? I only have a few thousand drop frames. God. It's painful. It's really painful from a streamer's perspective. Like dropping frames is just like little bits of you just crumbling. Mulder and Willow, glad your dad's been back streaming, man. Love watching his streams. Oh, right on. Yeah, I really think he's got a talent for that. Like he's really always been a people person, but it's been a face-to-face interaction, you know? So I think that much is a bit of a challenge for him, where it's like, I'm used to hearing a voice, I'm used to seeing a face, not used to having just sort of like a monologue. But I think he's adapting pretty well and pretty quickly. I really do want to get his stream dialed in better though. I want to get the Stream Deck working flawlessly. It somehow just stopped working. I want to get a microscope working. I want to get another different video card because the one that's in there is just like ancient. Like 4 builds ago, ancient. It's I think it's a GTX like 285 or something, which was very decent like even 10 years ago, but anyway. Hey Bearded, hey Wargaming. Fish, that'll look good. Panerai uses those buckles too, don't they? Oh yeah, they do use big buckles on their leather bands. But it is a really nice band. I've always really liked Banda. Banda has made some quality stuff over the years. Something about this though, being that it is a big heavy watch, it does need at least medium pad. Heavy pad is preferable. So when it starts off nice and thick and then it tapers down in the band itself, it's a quality piece. And generally speaking, the runner itself, the belt, the loop for the band itself, this is usually always the first thing to come off, right? And it's nice that they have a good double stitch on there. Anyway, enough about the band, let's get to the watch. Okay, here's our bezel ring. How is everybody? What's new? Oh, something that I want to do is clean out this old gasket material. Well, that's easy enough. It's like flaking. So, in the morning I did some chores, got a couple of oil filters for the Prius, changed the oil. I might have put too much oil in it accidentally. You know me, I really don't like over-oiling. I'm going to mute this real quick and blast it with some dust off. All right, let's get to assembling the movement. And what I'll do in preparation is heat up the sonic to throw this guy in there. The business end of the stem is in good shape. I don't think this watch was really used a whole lot anyway, so it's not like you would expect any sort of wear on the stem or anything like that. Still, it doesn't hurt to inspect everything. Rocks, hey, overoiling the sin on the stream for sure. Yeah, even in the automotive world, you can overoil. Let's get some finger cots. Let's pump this down one notch. I just noticed that both of these bands are the same length. It's unexpected bonus. Oh, also the Hoyer crystal came out really nice. It's really difficult to see, but when you do put a sapphire crystal on a watch, there is an ever so slight, ever so faint, pinkish sort of a hue. And you almost don't notice it on this one. But I kind of see it. I kind of see it. It darkened up the gray just a little bit. I think it looks good. Anyhow. I gotta say, I've really been missing that second rinse cup. It really goes a long way. It's kind of a, at this point I see that it's really a necessity. Like, I don't want to ever go back to single rinse. The amount of hand cleaning that I would have to do after single rinse is, it was just kind of staggering. Always coming from the double rinse and then going to a single rinse was like, you really see the benefit. Like, just everything is just primo. It's nice to see. You love to see it. Kind of just looking at that bushing there. Okay. Yeah, all the jewels are just really nice. To be fair, it was pretty clean to begin with. Like, it just hadn't been used after being cleaned, so the expectation is it should be clean. But it's really nice to see it. Like, just flawless. All right, let's bring everything a little forward. We'll adjust the cams. Oh, there we go. Nice. Everything's decent, I think. As always, if you guys notice something, feel free to chat out your 2 cents. Backseating is allowed. Let's get our gear train out. Wait. Yeah, okay. Sometimes these finger cots, they will put the texture on the wrong side. I was noticing that my thumb was slipping a little bit easier than it normally would. Because they're not just straight latex. Well, I mean they are, but they don't have that smooth finish all the way through. There's a transition point where there's a bit of texture on them. Which is really nice. And then when you don't have it, you're like, kind of wish I had it. Okay, let's look at our fork. If you guys were here last night, saw that the fork, palette stone oil, had already dried out. So again, even though the watch wasn't being used, there's still changes that occur with the oil itself over time. The difference is pretty staggering. Love seeing it clean. All right, so being that we took the gear train off before we took off the mainspring bridge, we'll get it back in before we get the mainspring bridge stuff in place. Or wait, no, I actually have to go vice versa for the order of operations. I can still get it into place, but it's not as comfortable. So what I'll do is I'll put the gear train bridge aside, as well as the train, and we'll install the fork. Hey Suleiman. Can't imagine natural gemstones are ever that perfect looking. Assuming that they don't have any inclusions. They certainly should and can look just as good. And of course I forgot to demag, but that's okay. I'll demag the rest of the parts while I remember. Tion, most corundum used like this is man-made. Yeah. It's certainly the preference, not just for cost, but also for consistency. Perfect amount of end shake. All right, let's do this. Let's get these together, demag them. So impressed that it's possible to grow a crystal that large by synthetic means. Yeah, and then just to imagine that they did it over 100 years ago. Like, I think synthetics were being grown in the late 1800s. Can anybody confirm that? I want to say it's like 1890s. All right, we'll have to get our mainspring ready as well. I need to get some XLs. Or are these XLs? No, they're just Ls. These wheels are looking nice and bright. Must have involved a lot of trial and error to get the formula right. Large several carat lab grown rubies can be bought online at around 30 a carat. That's great. Gotta love it. Yep, first man-made rubies were 1837. Wow, that's earlier than I thought. Wait a sec. Okay, yellow Oiler's just slightly, ever so slightly bigger than the black Oiler. I don't see any bushing wear on this barrel. Hey, what's up, Andy? Hey, Vindazzle. I'm thinking I could get it in with tweezers, but why not use a pin vise? Just like that. Anyone else find this relaxing? Me. Same watch from yesterday, yeah. Hey, Rim Dog. Do I ever use my loop? Oh, all the time. And I would say it's a necessity. It's not something that you can just get by without. And that's something that really needs to be hammered home and really ingrained into aspiring watchmakers. Is just like, when in doubt, get some more magnification on it. You're not going to be able to fix something that you can't see. Suleiman, haven't seen Charlotte around a while. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe she took a break from Twitch. Rogue, another necessity would be a holder for the loop, since very few people can naturally hold one in their eye socket. Oh yeah, if you're talking about the eye cup loops, not my first choice. I used them for a while. And then once I tried one of these, that was it. I was like, I'm done with that. But yeah, you're right. Like, you almost need the strap that goes around your head for the eye cup loop. And then there you have, like, especially if you're bald, there you have another point of discomfort. If that spring's a little too tight, you've got literally a steel band strapped around your skull. It's uncomfortable for me. Hey, Monkey Man. Thought it was, when in doubt, add more oil. No, definitely not. Rim Dog, is it like a monocle? The eye cup, it's like a monocle that gives you tunnel vision. Because they're closed in, you don't have any other light coming in from the sides. All you have is that light that's coming through the loop itself. For me, it was fatiguing not only for my eye socket, but also fatiguing for when it's not letting in light from the sides. It does something for me. Like it's not something that's natural. It's not something that's easy. There definitely is an adjustment phase. I wouldn't say a learning curve, but it's just like your body is compensating for it. So for me, my eye would get tired not only from the cup itself, but also from that closed-in light. on the sides. The lack of light on the sides. What's up, Munchie? Something covering one eye, held up by a band around your head, Pyro Watchmaker. More like Mad Eye Moody, maybe. Yeah. That's too much. Nice, very nice. Our mainspring's ready. Hey, what's up, Special? Welcome on in. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to share, feel free to keep it to yourself. All right, let's prep our bridge here. Hey, schoolboy. Rimdog, what triggers the duck sound? I think it's a follow. And it's a throwback. Channel lore. Back when I was streaming from the other shop. When I first got, well, not first got, the first stream rig. I had everything plugged into the same circuit, including the bench lathe. And what was happening is when I would run the lathe, there would be this ground loop feedback or something that just sort of piped in through the microphone or something. I have no idea what had happened. but it was, every time I would run the lathe, it would make this quacking noise. It would just be like quack, quack, quack. And it was just like, chat, I couldn't hear it. You know, I'm just like minding my own bee, like turning some metal. And the chat's just like, what is that quacking? So I literally had to like listen to the VOD to be like, oh, I get it. Or somebody sent me a clip, I think. And then it got me thinking, okay, if it's only happening when I'm using the lathe, then it's got to be the lathe. And then I think what I did temporarily was I swapped the plug-in for it, which was kind of a pain because we had to, being that the benches were in the middle of the shop, we had to have a long extension to get power to the middle of the shop. So what I ended up doing after that, I think, was I bought is it a PSU? I just bought like a, emergency power unit. And then I could have both of them plugged in because the power units, they provide their own sine wave or something like that. I forget. UPS, thank you. Liquid, is there any other device you can think of which has complexity of watch movement for the sheer scale of its manufacture and operation? So something as complex but the same form factor, right? Aside from like gauges like airplane gauges or something like that, cockpit gauges, I can't really think of a whole lot. That's a good question for chat. Chat's smarter than me. Especially I do enjoy watching a skilled craftsperson at work. Amazing know-how being displayed. Oh, thank you. That's what I like to do, is I like to share this work. What happened to the bench lathe when I came? I don't recall you having one. I have it here. It's right next to me on the right. It's not fully set up, and so far I haven't had a need for it. But the plan was to set up short one here, long one here. The long one for different tool sets, so that this one could be just for pivot repair, polish, minor things. And then I could have something for a little more tailored for like manufacturing over here. So I'm still in the market for a long bed lathe, something 40 centimeters or greater. Still looking. I've found a couple here and there pop up for sale, but then they just ended up going well out of my price range. And I'm currently looking at one. But we'll see how it goes. Long bed lathe, 40 centimeters. Yeah, 42 would be pretty primo. But yeah, these shorter ones, they're like, usually they're less than a foot. So that gives you an idea. I recently acquired some gear set. And I think it was for indexing or screw cutting. I haven't really had the time to really examine it. Okay, so this wheel doesn't have anything holding it in place. The trick is, how do you get it to stay put? And then when you go to turn it over, it doesn't fall out like that. And I'll show you what I usually do. But before that, we'll get the rest of our winding assembly in place. Schoolboy, I have a mechanical chrono where the second hand doesn't reset to 12 and not to the same spot each time. What's the brand? What's the manufacturer? Based on position when reset pressed, do you think that means the hand is loose or is there something wrong inside? It's probably due for a service. A lot of times what ends up happening is people will lubricate the chronograph hearts either with the wrong lubricant or way too much, and that lubrication gets sticky and gummy over time. So when the reset hammers come in and smack that chrono heart, they end up getting stuck. So it doesn't have like freedom of motion to completely return to zero. So if you end up smacking it from, say like 4:30, it'll get stuck on one side, and then you smack it from 6:30 and it'll get stuck on the other side. That sort of thing. 6:30, say like 7:30. Basically one side is 6 o'clock or the other, because the very peak of the heart is should be right at 6 o'clock. So when the hammer comes to strike one side or the other of the heart, it really depends on which way it's going to reset. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever, but if it was working fine on up until that point, that's likely the case, is that it's due for service. And I know how annoying that is. I really do. So, movement is at a modular. Oh, it's a module, right? So it's not a 7750 chronograph. It's like a 2894, and then it has a module stacked on top. Makes sense. Brogan, unless the watch is designed to return to 12, the same direction every time, those exist too. Oh, you might be thinking of a flyback. It was working fine before, so that all sounds right to me. 2894, okay. The module might not be entirely serviceable, unfortunately. I'm not sure if that's the case in your particular application. But sometimes those modules from the factory, the watch comes in for a service and they'll just replace the entire module. It certainly cuts down on labor, but it makes it very tricky from a serviceability standpoint. Okay, so to hold that wheel in place, what I like to do is put a little bit of grease on the post. And that grease acts as like a, kind of like a glue, I guess, if you will. But it really just provides that surface tension. Is that the right word? It's kind of like with two pieces of glass. Have you ever stuck two pieces of glass together and then like tried to separate them? It can be really difficult, especially if there's some water in between there. If there's some water in the glass as well, it can become like vacuum sealed together. Yes, flybacks, they grind. Hey, Gamp. Capillary action. Usually when I think of capillary action, it's when you put a bit of oil, like on a post, and it sucks it in, sucks the oil in. Kind of like ringing gauge blocks. I'm not sure what you mean. It's like a Venturi effect? No, not a Venturi effect either. You guys are funny. Okay. Let's see if I can do this without that wheel falling out. Uh-oh. I gotta lift it back up. Well, I think we're good. I think we're okay. So at this point, you can't just put the screws in and screw it down into place. You gotta make sure that the ratchet wheel is meshing properly. So what I do is I put a little bit of downward pressure and then wiggle the ratchet wheel. You gotta rotate it a little. There we go. And by rotating it a little, you get the teeth on this pinion to mesh up with our ratchet wheel. And then it sits completely flush. You wouldn't want to screw this down into place without verifying and making sure that those teeth are where they need to be. Because what will end up happening is the pinion on this wheel will end up coming down and crushing the ratchet wheel. And it's possible it could damage it. Pretty sure capillary action involves a tube of some sort. Yeah, I'll show you what capillary action is. Let me put a couple of screws in this first. Or let me tighten the screws. No, I think it is surface tension. Maybe not. I don't know. No, I think that's just the resistance. Like I think what surface tension describes is like, you know how there's like bugs in some lakes and streams where those bugs can walk across the surface of the water? And that's because of surface tension. And capillary action, at least in this case, is how the oil itself wicks into a very, very tight surface, tight tolerance area. I wonder if I can capture that. Like so. Maybe. Let's give it a go. Okay, so here we have our mainspring arbor and then the bushing around it. So in order to get oil into that bushing, take a little bit. I think that's a bit too much. But once you touch it to there, that oil gets sucked in. And that's the capillary action. Did you guys see it happen once I had the oiler rested there? It was like a vacuum sucked the oil in. But yeah, that was a bit too much, as you can see the excess on the outside. So in the description of it, the capillary action would be is if you already had the two pieces of glass put together, along that seam across the top, if you were to put some liquid across the seam, it would get sucked into, and you would see that liquid in between the panes. But what I was trying to describe was the resistance that those two panes have against being pulled apart. So because they're relatively really flat, they end up, pushing out all the air, almost all the air in between them. And then to separate those two, it's almost like they're sucked together with vacuum. It's just adhesion. Hey Beats. School web glass is stuck together, so basically a vacuum because it's so smooth there is no gap for air. Atmosphere just holds it. Molecular attraction or cohesion. I like that. They have tiny air bubbles. Beats, yeah, I can't jump into water from too high surface tension. Okay. Went around the top edge on the curve. Ego is adhesive force or cohesive. Oh, I think that sounds right. I like that. Okay, so with a little bit too much oil, you're left with just a touch on the surface. So what do you do to take that out? You can use a little bit of watch paper, or you can use Rodico. I like to use watch paper at first, and then if there's a bit of a residue left, you can use Rodico. Cleaning my Rodico here. Oil went around, but we could see. Yeah, it's tough to do it like that. For one, you don't have depth perception, but for two, I'm far more stable right here than I am reaching out over here. So it looks a little shaky. Rimdog, what is watch paper? It's like an oil wicking paper that's low in fiber. The one that I have and use is Newell. There we go. Watch tissue. Just some square sheets. A lot of different consumables in this industry. Gotta go for dinner. It was awesome to hang out here again. Right on. Enjoy your food. Rodico, yeah. So I have a few different styles and types here. As of late, I just rarely use it. It's really, really necessary to have. So the dark gray one was Bourgeon. Like this is way more that I'm going to use for decades, I think. But the sheets of white one, were very, very old. Like, I remember the branding and the labeling on it was like, it was like from the 50s or 60s. So it's not really like this stuff kind of goes bad per se. And a little goes a long way. It does get dirty, it does get contaminated over time, so it does need to be thrown out the more it's used. Thought I had more in here of that white stuff. So Rodico is like it's like a cleaner. It's slightly adhesive, slightly sticky, but when it's clean, it shouldn't leave a residue. So if you've got a little bit of dust or if you've got like a little bit of oil, it'll pick it up. And I guess I haven't been using it a whole lot is because a lot of times to pick up dust, I'll use my tweezers. I really wouldn't recommend leaving it out unless it's in a container, because any sort of dust and contaminants that are in the air just eventually will settle, and when it settles on there, it ever so slightly contaminates it. But if you're in a shop and it's just like you're using it all the time, odds are you have a supply where it's like it gets dirty, you throw it away, and then, you use a new piece. Okay, now we can put a little bit of lube on that guy. We can get our gear train in. And then I think at that point we'll finish off the dial side stuff. And then lube it all top to bottom. And then finish off with our balance assembly and auto winding assembly. Ad, I'm missing the explanation. Oh no. Is the ad over? There's just a slight amount of oxidation here. So I'm gonna take my pegwood here and run it across. Yet another consumable. Escape wheel's looking flawless. Okay. This little one screw bridge for 2890 series, most of the time is gonna be a non-issue. There's been a couple in entry-level swatch group that I've had issue with. And here, this one just falls right into place. All the pivots right where they need to be. The issues that I've come across were not only for that bridge, but also the mainspring bridge. A couple of times it's happened where they were so tight, the bridge themselves, even after taking the screws out, they were so tight that it took prying force in order to lift it up and out. Which is really not ideal. It's really just one of those times where it's like, quality control was, it was either a Monday or a Friday. But usually these movements are trouble-free. But in that circumstance, what I ended up doing was just reaming out the dowel holes a little bit, just ever so slightly. Not so much removing material, but just sort of burnishing it. Because it's either a combination of the dowel peg, the locator lug, that is on the bottom side of these bridges, being slightly too large, or the hole that they go into being slightly too tight, or maybe even a combination of the two. So usually by reaming out the hole itself, you end up relieving some pressure on that bridge. It's really not something you would run into on like higher end Swatch. Really, it's just like, I think there was a dog at the door. Because these movements, they come in different grades. So there's like pretty entry level, which I wouldn't consider this one to be entry level. This is like, say if there's 4 different grades, I don't actually know if that's the case. I would say this would be like B grade, I don't know. All right, what's next? Did we go dial side? Finish off the calendar? Let's do that. I'll use the gravity assist to get that out. These are looking very clean. Still couldn't hurt to dump them though. Dunk them in either one dip or benzene or alcohol. Let it soak a bit. Get out some calendar parts. How are we doing? Dropped almost 25,000 frames, but we're okay for now. Okay, let's lube up some things first. And then we'll start with set bridge area. Okay. Get our clutch wheel and winding pinion. Parts looking nice and clean, yeah. They certainly are. All right, let's get our yoke in. And then we need detent, set bridge. Then we have a setting yoke here, which has a couple of little bits and bobs. So that goes in before our detent. This will toggle back and forth. That's a bit too much. There we go. Now we can put our yoke and detent in place. The yoke goes like that. drops into that channel of the clutch wheel, just like so. Goes right down the middle of that clutch wheel. Or for a hobbyist or all, just what tools are a must? Tweezers, a loop, screwdriver set, maybe a bench mat, when it comes to lubricants, you need probably Mobius 8000 and Mobius 8200. You might need a couple of movement holders. You might want a balance tack. You might want some pith wood and some peg wood. A couple of jars for solvents. Couple of like dust movement holders so that you can, anything that you're working on, you can cover it up so that it doesn't get too contaminated with dust. You might need a couple of blocks. Pin vise, probably a couple of different types. You might want one like this, and then also one like this, because this one grips not perfectly parallel, whereas this one, depending on the style of the fitting at the tip here, it can grip pretty parallel. You might want at least, you know, a presso tool for removing hands. My preference is for hand levers, like that. You might want a couple of hand press tools for different size hands. Maybe a couple of dentist tools. You can just go to your dentist and ask them, hey, do you have any leftover tools? Odds are they probably do, because they have to replace theirs pretty frequently. Some Rodico, maybe some brooches. Some silicone lube. It kind of depends on what area you're leaning towards, whether it's pocket watches or vintage ladies watches or, you know, modern wrist watches. Or if you're just going towards quartz, there's different avenues for sure. You're gonna want some oilers. You might want some abrasive stones, whether it be an India stone or an Arkansas stone. Or if you can come across like something like this, that's probably fine. You're gonna need abrasive stones for sharpening tools mainly. Keeping your tools dressed up. You're gonna need case back tools, case opening tools. You're gonna need a hand vise. Something to pop open case backs with. And then a case press in order to pop them back into place with different cup sizes. You might need a crystal remover and crystal installer. You might need some GS crystal glue. Probably not Loctite. Maybe UV glue if you're doing crystal replacements. If they're acrylic, you're gonna need the press for some of them. Different types of case back popping tools go a long way. There's some applications where a typical case knife isn't really gonna do the trick. Having something like this, my particular preference is the Citizen one. This thing has gotten me out of a lot of binds. And then you're gonna need some sort of JAXA tool, case wrench with different tips. Don't go too cheap with this one. Don't get the $5 JAXA tool, because those, you might be able to get away with it, but don't use the tips that they supply. The tips that they use are incredibly brittle. You'll be trying to take off a tight case back and the tip will break on you, and then it just leaves a nasty gouge in the watch. You're gonna want maybe something like this, speed lubricator, just for lubing up O-rings. Maybe, I say, because a lot of times you can do it by hand, but then you got silicone grease all over the place. You might need a couple of different styles of pliers. Side cutters for sure. You're definitely gonna want some side cutters. There again, you might want one side cutter for steel and then one side cutter for softer metals. Because if you just use your one side cutter for steel for other things, you're gonna notice it's really dull. It's not that good. It's not gonna leave you a nice clean cut. You're probably gonna want some scratch pens in varying degrees of abrasiveness. Like fiberglass is gonna be very abrasive. Nylon is gonna be really, really soft. You might want some chapstick for chewing your lips. I don't know if you guys are lip biters, but you're gonna want a brass hammer for sure. And then you might want a steel one, but odds are one little brass hammer will get you a long way. I don't think you're gonna need a whole lot of files. You might want a couple of soft bristle brushes. You might want some brass brush. You're gonna use brass brush more than you use steel brush. some calipers. It certainly helps to have multiple different sizes and types of case back pops. I don't think you're gonna need hand holding tools. You're not gonna really need like roller table tools. A few different pins to have. Sometimes you need to press something and pop something. If you just have like a few different styles of pins and brooches and things, you really never know when you're going to use them and need them. You might not need screw assortments. You might not need dial tape. You might not need wash tissue, but certainly some Rotico. Okay, you're also gonna need an air bulb. You're gonna need it. There's a lot of applications and things where you really don't want to use dust off. Like absolutely no dust off in certain applications. Inside of movements, probably no dust off. Outside, knock yourself out, but just be careful with dust off, because when the tank is full, it's far, far easier to get that like super, super cold like liquid that immediately evaporates. That will damage things. Absolutely 100% that will damage things. So just be aware when your dust off can is full to be very, very careful with it. Don't turn it, don't shake it, don't do anything like that, because that will give you that like almost like absolute zero cold stream. You'll probably want an X-Acto knife for certain things. Sharpening your peg wood. Sometimes there's gaskets that you need to cut, that sort of thing. Let's see. You'll probably want a battery tester if you're getting into quartz stuff and things. That kind of rounds it out, I think. You're not going to need things like, why has this name been escaping me as of late? You're probably not going to need shellac. A toothpick every now and then is actually pretty handy. And if you really start getting into it and you're really, really enjoying it, getting some sort of like organization going where you've got like some containers to hold different things that you use. There's probably something obvious that I'm missing. If you can think about it, feel free to put it out there. Rear wagon, like a vise you have in front of you. Yeah, these movement holders, a lot of times you're gonna have like an oddball one that just really, really works for any specific application that you're working on. So a lot of these, like the style that you see me gravitate towards is something like this, you know. They're reversible most of the time. I really like these because they have a bit of heft to them and they're not obnoxious. You're gonna see a lot of hobbyists with this style of movement holder. This is the Bourgeon style. This one I've modified. It's like the 4036, 4039. I never really liked these. They were always quirky, weird to work with. I didn't like that they were too tall, and I didn't like that they were too light. Once I sort of went towards a heavier movement holder, I pretty much abandoned this one altogether. There are certain movements where you're almost certainly going to need this. A lot of ladies' movements, older ladies' movements, they're going to be small. Some are shaped just like this. Older men's wind-up watches, some movements are this exact shape. They're semi-rectangular and they're sort of rounded at the sides. This, you know, you can still make this work in a lot of those cases. But yeah, for tiny little women's, you know, watch movements, ladies' watch movements, this thing certainly works. The way that I modified this was so that I could hold it in my fingers like so. So I just sort of cut away at both of these sides here. And I think I sanded it down. I don't remember. It might have just been the sides. Holding it still, holding it in place while you're doing things was always quirky and awkward for me with this one. I do recommend like buying used tools, older tools, used tools. If you buy a lot of this stuff new, it's gonna set you back a lot. So just be aware of that. Sometimes you can just go on eBay and find tool lots and you can be like, okay, this has some of the things I need, a lot of the things I don't, but you're gonna save a lot of money by, you know, instead of piecemealing like one piece at a time, which can get very expensive, those tool lots, sometimes you might just get the entire lot for like 2 pieces that you're really needing and wanting. But then you're left over with extras, and sometimes it's okay to have extras. Also, I would imagine a lot of hobbyists could get a lot of use out of something like this, like a watch pad, where maybe you don't have a bench mat, maybe you're just on wood or on a table or something, and these watch pads are really nice. I use it for the microscope camera, almost exclusively. I think that kind of gives you an idea. Now that's not including like cleaning supplies and stuff, so that is a different animal altogether. Really depends on what kind of cleaner you're going with, whether you're doing it by hand or what. Get yourself a watch, a crystal rag, something that you don't use for anything else. Like having a standard towel is really good to have. You don't want to take your standard towel and then rub around on the inside of the crystal to clean it out. It's going to leave a lot of fibers. It's going to leave probably some contaminants. It might even scratch the crystal. So that's something to keep in mind. Ouchie. Screwdriver holder. This is for sharpening your screwdriver. Having a little jig like this so that you can run it across your stone, pretty critical. Doing it by hand, you're never really gonna get the profile that you need and want. You want your tools to work for you. You don't want to be working against your tools. Getting the profile of your screwdriver blades is gonna make or break your experience. So take a lot of time making sure your screwdrivers are dressed up the way that you want them to be. It certainly is beneficial to have some screwdrivers meant for like opening up case back screws, and then others meant for just like working on the movement itself. Maybe a demagnetizer. There again, having your tools work for you and not having them work against you. How long did that take to go over all that? Oh, don't put your work area in a carpeted area. You don't want carpet underneath you. Go figure. And then there's certain things that you need to take into consideration, like ergonomics. Again, your ergonomics will make or break your experience. Making sure that your chair is set at the right height is so critical. Take the time to make sure that your bench is comfortable for you. You don't want to be straining yourself when you're at your bench. Hey, cakes. Did you bring cake? I only have cookies. Oatmeal. Don't forget the streaming computer and tons of webcams. Yeah. I mean, if you really start getting into it, getting yourself a lathe set up and maybe even a microscope camera could go a long way. Flux capacitor testing for quartz watches. Missing movement cleaning supplies and machine. I know a lot of hobbyists that will do it by hand. They will do their cleaning like with soft bristle brush and like a vat of like solvent, and then just scrubbing things that way. Certainly you can, if you're motivated enough and broke enough, because the cleaning machines themselves can be exorbitantly expensive. Especially if you're looking at newer ones, new cleaning machines, they can be in the thousands of dollars easily. So at that point, it's like the lines of the hobbyist have become blurred, you know? You can certainly make your own cleaning solutions. With some oleic acid, I think it was oleic acid, ammonia, Distilled water. What was it? 20 Mule Team? If you search like homemade watch cleaning or homemade clock cleaning solution, you're probably going to see something along those lines. Now, if you take your time and are hunting around and you're looking for a cleaning machine, you can get away with the L&R. Is it Mastermatic? It's the non-ultrasonic cleaning machine. And those won't set you back like thousands. It'll maybe be a couple of hundred. And if you take your time, maybe you could find this one. Maybe you can find the Bulova Watchmaster. I think this one I got for, I want to say like $350. But you're kind of taking a gamble because like the people that are selling them might not be aware of like what the functions are, how it's supposed to be working. They might just say fully functional, but they don't realize that, well, the ultrasonic's barely humming along, it's not even doing the job. Or they might not realize that, the transducer could be weak or needs replacement, or the tubes are bad, or so there is a bit of a you're rolling the dice a little. Because they are old. It is an old machine, so while I really like it and really like the sonic when it's really working good. It's got a very aggressive cleaning action. Not too aggressive, just it's a good sonic. You probably could just get away with like a small jeweler's sonic, truth be told. Getting yourself a small jeweler's sonic might be the way to go. But there again, these can be very pricey. Like something like that, You're certainly going to want something like that for at least, cleaning bands and cases. But the way you can use this for a watch movement is you get like a glass beaker. So you get a glass beaker, you put your solution in the glass beaker, you set it down in there with the tank, you fill up the tank after you put the glass beaker in, otherwise you're going to have some overflow. But then you let the solution heat up along with the ultrasonic. And the glass jar or beaker itself isn't going to cancel out all of the ultrasonic waves. In some cases, it might have the potential to amplify them. Okay. Rotten Picks, what watch is this one? This is the Bell & Ross. Kodo Killer, do you still sell watches? Yeah, I'm working on this Bell & Ross to sell. And I got this Hoyer all dialed in and ready to sell. There is somebody interested in the Bell & Ross. Nobody's really contacted me yet for the Hoyer. So what will likely happen is the Hoyer will probably go on eBay, whereas this one will be probably sold to one of you. Hey Akabiti, just use paper towels, grease. Oops, hang on, I need to catch up with you guys. Grease and oil from car work would add to help lube to the watch. Unironically, brake cleaner in automotive cases, which is tetrachloroethylene, is almost the exact same thing as one dip. One dip used specifically for watches is very, very close to brake cleaner. So plenty of light. Hey, that's actually a great one there, Rogue Wagon. 12 hours, it took 12 hours. Okay, I started by hand. It takes a while, but it does work as well as you want it to. Yeah, as much time as you got, certainly. Bleach and ammonia is a good cleaning mix. Wait, isn't that, you don't want to do that, right? That makes a very highly toxic gas. It's bleach and ammonia, right? That makes like kill you gas, like fluorine gas or something. I don't know. Yeah, don't do that. I might be wrong. Maybe it's a different mix. 88 mile an hour. Cleaning machine, guess you could get a steel rod attached locking. RC motor will be a good way. Iron Chef, I've got like 4 of them just sitting there. Downhill it would. Hey Yochi, use the basic ultrasonic where you put in clean and rinse solutions in jars and parts and baskets in those. Yeah. And then it's, you know, double duty where you can use it for watch cases and watch bands. Or even, you know, jewelry. Rod, it's great to see Pop streaming again. Yeah, he's really enjoying it. McFarlane, is there a good market for watches? Yeah, I would say so. YouTube vids are nice, but streaming with chat interaction is so much better. Thanks for this. Oh, my pleasure. Omega Red brake cleaner is great for stripping off, paint off miniatures. Yeah, just don't do it in a closed area. If you're working on your miniatures in your mom's basement, just go outside to use the brake cleaner. I'm just kidding. Miniatures are awesome. Good eyes. If you have bad eyes, it's hard to get around. Bleach and ammonia is chloramine gas, which will mess you up but might not kill. Okay, okay. Yo, Moose, got to meet your daddy. Right on. Very cool. How did that go? It's not often you get to say that, right? It's kind of fun. So Moose, I've been building out my new shop. It started out life as a tractor shed, and I've pulled out the walls, cleaned everything out. And so far I've got the hole cut for the door. And when I get back, probably next week, I will start doing the framing and the header for the door, and then framing for bathroom, and then comes insulation, walls. Probably won't be going with drywall, probably just going with like facade. Installing AC, a little bit of wiring. It was already wired up pretty much. But then everything bathroom related comes a little bit later. Getting the flooring in is probably going to be done early next month. And then I pack all this up,